Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about making your own premium potting mix. And this potting mix right here is probably one of the most expensive because it's moisture control and they put a special additive in there, or they used to. I haven't looked lately, but when this first came out, this was the secret ingredient that they would put in there. And this is the secret ingredient that we're putting in our soil. I'll give you a close-up of it. So sorry, the lighting in the potting shed is not as good as in the greenhouse. So this is the secret ingredient that was added. Now I've looked over all over the bag. I can't see where it says they do add it, but maybe it's in there. But this is not a fertilizer. It's not perlite. It's not anything like that. It's something totally different. And I've looked around to see how many people do this. Not a lot of people use this special additive. It can last up to 5 years in your potting soil. So it's really important. We're going to move out to the greenhouse. I'm going to show you how to put it all together. So guys, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is perlite. And it is basically volcanic glass that's been heated to about 1800 degrees. And it expands or kind of, I guess it's kind of like popcorn. It just kind of explodes. And so that's why it has this airy, almost like a popcorn look about it. But this, normally I buy this in a much larger bag, but they were out of stock. So I've got some on the way through delivery, but usually I order, it's a 2 cubic foot bag, so it's quite a bit larger than this. So we're going to reduce the mixture down to accommodate the perlite, since we have plenty of the black cow and plenty of the peat moss. But this I'm going to do first, and I'm going to talk about some things you want to do before you mix it. There's a little bit of an issue with mixing it in an indoor confined area, so I'll talk about that. But mainly this is our first thing we're going to mix. Okay guys, since I have a limited amount of perlite and I don't have my normal large bags, I'm just going to use this small bag. But I'm not going to use a 5-gallon container as our mixing bucket. I'm going to use this smaller container you can get at Lowe's. I believe it's a 2-gallon container, and you get it in the paint section. So it's easier to measure this when you have a measuring, if you know how much exactly you're doing there. So we're going to do the full container of the 2 gallons. And one thing I will tell you, this dust is not good for you. It's not good to breathe it. It's not good to get into your nasal passages. So I'm going to carefully pour this in there and step away while the dust settles. Okay, now that our perlite storm is over, I'm going to talk a little bit about this container. This is just a kiddie pool that came from Dollar General stores, and I use it when I'm cleaning out my koi pond. I can put my koi in here where they'll be safe for a few hours before when I'm cleaning it out. So that really helps. What I'm going to say about perlite is you just need to make sure that you don't let the dust get into your sinuses and nasal passages. You just don't want this in your lungs. What we'll say is just good to wash it a little bit before you start mixing it. That's why I'm doing this first, to make sure the perlite has a lot of moisture on it, and I don't have to worry about the dust while I'm mixing it. Okay, so I didn't do a huge amount of water. I just want to get it wet so we can knock down the dust a little bit, and then we'll go on to our second product. So there are some questions about how long perlite will last. And perlite will last forever. It's basically just a stone. It doesn't break down any further as it's been heated from its natural form of volcanic glass. So I'm just going to spread it out a little bit before I come in with the next additive. You can also use perlite if you're using it for cactus in small pots and you're not mixing it heavy. You can use perlite over and over. So if you wash it, you'll be able to use it more than once. So I'm going to hit it one more time just to get a little bit of extra water in there. And I love these Orbit sprayers I picked up at the big box store, but they do sell them on Amazon if you want to get one quickly. They're really made out of metal and heavy-duty plastic, high-density plastic. So one thing I will say is the perlite, black cow, and the peat moss, those 3 main ingredients that we're doing for the primary premium potting mix, is going to save you up to 75%. So it is a huge saving if you compare it there. But when you talk about the moisture control, then it goes up another level, because that is going to be even more expensive. And the Miracle-Gro brand is really the highest cost potting soil you can get. And there's some even higher brands I didn't even look at, but the one I was looking at today specifically, or yesterday, was the premium potting mix with moisture control, and that's what I want. Moisture control here where I live, it gets really dry. We can go weeks sometimes without any rain, and if it's outside of my irrigation system, this will save the plant from dying. Okay, the next thing I'm adding in is peat moss, and peat moss is basically just a product that's found in bogs, and it takes, they say, up to 1,000 years for there to be I think it's 3 feet of peat moss to form. And this also is very dusty, and you don't want it in your sinuses, but it's not as toxic as the perlite. So again, you don't want to breathe it, but it's just perlite, that volcanic glass could get in your lungs and can cause some issues there. And if you're already sensitive to things like that, it could be a big problem for you. So even with this, you might want to make sure you don't have any air circulating or there's a windy day, because then it would blow back up in your face. It's very still today, so I don't have to worry about this blowing back into my face. And I'm trying to get this out of the bag very carefully, but not always succeeding. So I'm going to get the peat moss, the big bag, out of our way and set that somewhere where it won't be in our way. So peat moss is going to help you with your moisture retention in your premium potting mix. The perlite is just going to allow water to drain straight through because it doesn't hold water, but it adds a lot of lightness to the soil. So that's what we're doing. 1 part perlite, 1 part peat moss, and the next thing we're going to add in our compost. Now there's a lot of different types of compost. I like Black Cow. It has millions of beneficial bacteria in it. It's going to help your plant. It's going to replenish your soil with lots of nutrients that your plant has drawn out. So that's why Black Cow is so great. So you have the 3 ingredients on your premium potting mix, but the 4th ingredient is the key to keeping your plants alive in a drought, or if you just can't water a lot. Okay, now it's going to be a little bit different for our Black Cow. We're going to actually add 2 parts Black Cow. We want more of this to aid in the plant's health. These first 2 are about releasing and retaining moisture, but this is about nutrition, and Black Cow will also help your plants with nitrogen. It will help absorb the nitrogen and other nutrients. So Black Cow, those millions of beneficial bacteria. One thing about Black Cow, there is no odor to it whatsoever. It is just odorless, really. It's just, you might smell like a dirt smell or something like that, but it doesn't smell like fresh cow manure. It has been composted. So I'm going to add two containers of the Black Cow, and it's not as dusty, maybe because there's a little bit of moisture in it. So we're going to add 2 containers of the Black Cow, and I probably should be wearing gloves, but I've misplaced them or set them somewhere to the side, and I can wash my hands after this. So I'm just going to make sure we have 2 buckets. And it's can be a little bit clumpy, so it's a good idea to kind of break it down. But we're going to mix it when we get through doing all this. So there's our first bucket. We're going to add that to our mix. We're going to come back and try to break it up. It's a little clumpy in the middle of the bag because it's probably been sitting outside for quite a while. So I'm just going to break that into smaller pieces because I don't want to have to do this with my mixing tool. I want to do this by hand to make sure there's no large clumps in there. So we're going to come back, and our 2 parts Black Cow almost done. And I probably could have done this before filming, but I just figured I would do it live to make it see how it's done. So not the neatest thing to work with, but it does a great job. Okay guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit more in the potting shed before we move on to adding this last ingredient. The Black Cow is a really great product. They say it's up 5 to 6 times more nutrient dense or rich than just regular potting soil. So the Black Cow has a lot of great features, and that's one of the main keys to the potting mix, is you have a really good compost. You could use another type of compost, I suppose, but I just prefer Black Cow. It's everywhere. I can find it. It's not expensive. I think it was about $6 for that bag, and it's like pretty heavy bag. I can't tell you exactly what it weighs, but I think it's 1 cubic foot. But the secret ingredient to this potting mix is this: soil moist or Miracle Grow watering crystals. These crystals are like a gel-like product, and they expand, and they used to be in the Miracle Grow moisture control potting mix, but I don't know. I've looked all over the bag. I can't see where it says that. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I know when it first came out many years ago, they did add that. But this is really the key component if you live somewhere where watering every often is a problem, or if you have a problem with drought. So this is really the key component. This will keep your plants alive when you go out of town, or if you forget to water. This is a key ingredient. So lastly, about the watering crystals, you can either buy the Miracle Grow brand. They actually make it. It's a little pricey. These came from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. And also this came from Amazon, and I believe it was a little cheaper. It was just Soil Moist brand, and I think this is the better deal on that. But prices change all the time, so you'll just have to check if you want to take a look at Amazon. So these little watering crystals can absorb up to 400 times their weight. They're very small. It's like a coarse like rock salt maybe, or something like that, but they can absorb up to 400 times their weight when they're in the soil and they get moist, and so they will slowly release that moisture back into the soil. Some of the companies claim, I can't remember where I read this, it might have been Miracle Grow, it could have been Soil Moist, says that they can last up to 5 years in the soil. So that would give you time. You'll eventually, if you're planting in a pot, you'll change out the pot and then just add some more of these to the special potting mix. So that's one thing that I personally believe is the key to a premium soil retention potting mix. And yeah, this does bring the price up a little bit, but it will save your plant ultimately in a drought situation, or if you forget to water. So that's the last thing. Let's move back out to the greenhouse and we'll do the entire mix. So I'm going to add the last bucket of black cow. And so we have 2 parts compost, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part perlite. A couple more interesting facts about the Black Cow Corporation company, or whatever they call themselves. They have up to 20,000 cows producing this compost. I believe they're dairy cows, so they're constantly producing it, and so there's going to be a never-ending supply of this, but the price, like everything else, is going to go up. But it's a great product. I've been using it for many years, over 20 years. And so the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add in our special watering crystals. Okay, and so our secret ingredient is the 2 cups of watering crystals. I just use 2 cups. That may be too much if you're in a very if you have a lot of rain in your area, if you're in a zone that rains a lot. But here we can sometimes go for weeks without any significant rain. So if your annual rainfall is a lot higher than mine in zone 7A, you might want to cut it in half to 1 cup. But personally, I like using 2 cups. It does bring the price up overall. But if you just want to do the regular potting mix with the 3 ingredients, you're saving quite a bit over the premium potting mix Miracle Grow and some of the other brands as well, maybe up to 75%. So we're going to add this, we're going to mix it, and we'll put it into our final container. Now, if you're wanting to take your potting mix to the next level, where it's just the ultimate mix, you can use some of this Osmocote slow release fertilizer. I would say for this much, I would probably put in a 1/4 cup. I wouldn't put in a lot, but depending on what type of plant and the nutrition needs, this is great because it's a slow release, I believe, over a 6-month period. You can also put in bone meal if you prefer. I don't use a lot of bone meal, but this is also available on Amazon. I use that sometimes. And the last thing, if you have a lot of problems with ants or other insects, this is a great product as well. This came from, I think it was Amazon, but it may have been the big box store. But anyways, I'll put the link. Diatomaceous earth. It's an all-natural insecticide for a large amount of insects that might be in the garden, especially if you're going with tomatoes to use this mix for. This is a great product as well. So let's mix it, and we will be ready to put it into its final container. And finally, I'm just going to mix this with my garden rake. I'm just going to move it around. These kiddie pools are great because you can do it in an area and not make a giant mess. I'm pretty good at making messes even when most people couldn't. But anyways, we're just going to mix it back and forth and do a good mix. I really don't like mixing a lot of this at one time. I just like making about the level I make, and I put it in a container. And then if I'm running low, or if I have a lot of projects going, I'll make 2 or 3 of these. But for me, it's just easier to do the level. And we're just going to keep mixing back and forth so we get all 3 products, or actually 4 products, mixed in well. And since the perlite is wet, it may take a little bit more mixing, but I can see it's starting to all come together there. And I want to show you, I don't know if it's mixed enough yet, but I want to show you, there's not a lot of moisture in here, but it holds together really well. And you can see that right there, I'm hoping. But you can see it's just all clumped together. And I just lightly watered it, so you can see that the premium potting mix holds its shape really well. And so once it gets wet, it's going to be very nutritious. If you put in the slow release fertilizer along with the black cow, that's going to help quite a bit. And it's going to help drain properly, but help the perlite and the peat moss are going to help retain moisture, but not drown any of your plants. It'll just help slowly release the water back out of your pot. So I wanted to magnify this where you can see the soil and how really it looks just like a premium potting mix. I have the Miracle Grow potting mix here, and it's a little bit darker. I think it's a little bit more moist, but they're almost exactly the same in appearance. It looks like the same makeup. And this one, since we've added the watering crystals, I think is going to be much better than the Miracle Grow. It's just a great mix. I'm going to put it in my container, and I'll show you how I do that. I keep track of everything, or I try to. So I'm going to back the camera back off and show you how I add it to my final container. This is just a large tub, and it's easier to transport if I have somebody to help me in the garden if it's completely full. But I also like to do this right here. I like to know what's in it. So I just put on there moisture control potting mix. So if I forget, some time goes by, I might think it's just some brand I purchased, but since this is the premium moisture control, I want to remember that. So I'm going to finish up by scooping this up, and it's fairly easy to do with a flat end shovel from the kiddie pool. And so you can see this will hold quite a bit. And so if I've got a lot of projects going on, a lot of potting to do, I can use this, carry it around pretty easy, or just leave it in the greenhouse and bring my plants and their pots to this area and just pot everything up. Okay, so we've got half a container, and this is quite a bit of potting, so I'd say this would fill easily a 20-gallon nursery size container. So it's really light, a lot of moisture. It holds itself together really well. Let me see if I can get a handful there and squeeze it. So it's really great soil, and I really like it, and it sure saves a lot of money, up to 75% off of the big box stores price. And that's a huge savings when you figure if you're going to do 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 bags in a season. Hey guys, so you can see this is not that heavy. Even when it's more than half full, I was able to set it up on this table that's a little bit over, I guess, close to 4 feet. But it's not hard to move around, especially with these. So if you pick up one of these at Lowe's or Home Depot or your Ace Hardware, it's really a great way to transport soil. If you can't bring the plant to the soil, you can bring the soil to the plant. So anyways, I want to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you picked up some tips today, and I hope it's a great way for you to save money, because I love saving money when it comes to things in the garden. If you can save a little money here, you can buy more plants there, and it makes it a great way. So anyways, have a great day, and thanks for watching. Oh, please don't forget to like and subscribe.